Under the pale glow of dawn, Michael Harper drove a steel pole into the damp earth of his front lawn, the American flag unfurling above it like a quiet vow. Each movement was deliberate, heavy with purpose, as he positioned a small wooden cross beside it, adorned with a wreath of crimson poppies and a polished brass plaque that read, "In memory of Captain Thomas Harper, FDNY, lost on September 11th, forever honored." His hands trembled slightly, not from the chill of the morning but from the weight of 20 years that had carved his brother's absence into his bones. Michael had stayed up all night, searching for words to etch onto that plaque, words that could hold the enormity of a loss that still woke him in the dead of night, gasping for air. He thought this would be a private act, a silent communion with a brother whose laugh still echoed in his dreams. He never imagined that within days, his quiet tribute would ignite a firestorm. 2 mornings later, a crisp notice appeared on his door, stark white against the faded blue paint. Michael tore it free, his eyes scanning the typed words, saw unapproved lawn installation. Remove by Friday or face a $500 fine. Saw his pulse quickened, his fingers tightening until the paper crumpled. A fine? For a flag, a cross, a name? The absurdity of it burned, sharp and bitter. "This isn't some tacky holiday decoration," he muttered, his voice low, jagged with disbelief. "This is my brother." He stood frozen, the notice dangling from his hand, the world tilting just enough to feel wrong. By noon the next day, she arrived. The knock was brisk, official, like a summons. Michael opened the door to find a woman in a tailored gray suit, her auburn hair pulled into a severe bun. She was in her late 50s, her face all sharp angles and practiced calm. "Mr. Harper, I'm Cynthia Reynolds, chair of the Pinewood Homeowners Association," she said, her voice smooth as glass, a clipboard clutched like a shield. She gestured toward the lawn with a flick of her pen, as if Michael might have forgotten what stood there. "The display hasn't been approved. It violates our guidelines on temporary structures." Michael crossed his arms, his jaw tightening. "It's not a structure. It's a memorial." Cynthia's eyes didn't waver, her smile thin as a blade. "Rules apply to everyone, Mr. Harper. We maintain aesthetic consistency. If we allow one exception, the floodgates open." His voice dropped, low and taut. "Do you know what that flag means? Today, of all days?" She nodded, a perfunctory dip of her head. "We respect the significance, of course." "No," Michael cut in, stepping closer, his words sharp enough to draw blood. "You don't. If you did, you wouldn't be here demanding I tear down the only thing I have left of my brother. He didn't just die, Ms. Reynolds. He burned alive in the South Tower, choking on smoke, trying to save people who never had a chance." Cynthia shifted, her composure flickering, but she pressed on. "I'm sorry for your loss, truly. But the neighborhood's so harmony matters." That word harmony snapped something inside him. Not a break, but a fracture, slow and deep. Michael exhaled, his eyes boring into hers. "Harmony? Tell that to the families who lost everything on September 11th. Tell that to the man who called me from the 104th floor to say he loved me before he had to choose between burning or jumping." He turned, walking past her to the flag, his voice steady but laced with fury. "If you want harmony, start by honoring the people who died for it." That night sleep eluded him. Michael sat on his porch, curled into an old chair, staring at the memorial under the moon's cold light. The cross cast a long shadow, the flag barely stirring. Grief came in waves, not tears but a heaviness that clung to his chest, making every breath a labor. At 4 a.m., he rose, driven by something he couldn't name, and dug through his closet. Beneath a tangle of old coats, he found it, a battered shoebox, its edges soft with age. Inside were relics of a life cut short, faded photos, newspaper clippings, a half-finished letter in his own shaky hand. He hadn't touched it since the funeral, since the world had stopped making sense. At the kitchen table, he unfolded a blank sheet of paper and began to write. "Saw you'd laugh, Tom. You'd laugh until you couldn't breathe. They say I can't keep your flag up, that it ruins the neighborhood's look. As if your death didn't ruin the whole damn world. Saw his pen shook, a tear splattering the page. Saw they think this is about a lawn. It's not. It's about you. It's about what we lost. Saw he wrote until dawn, the words raw, unpolished, true. Then he printed the letter, sealed it in a plastic sleeve, and taped it to the memorial's base. It looked fragile at first, just paper in the wind, but it was a declaration. By mid-morning, neighbors began to pause. A jogger slowed, reading the letter word by word. A woman with a stroller pressed a hand to her mouth. An old man removed his cap, his lips moving silently. No one spoke, but their stillness said everything. By noon, the air felt different, weighted with something sacred. Michael watched from his steps, coffee cold in his hands, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone in his grief. Friday came, and the memorial stood defiant. The flag waved, the poppies untouched, the plaque gleaming. Across the street, a police cruiser idled, 2 officers inside, summoned to document his rebellion. Michael didn't flinch. He stood before the memorial, shoulders squared, eyes steady. Cynthia arrived minutes later, her heels clicking like a countdown. She didn't look at the memorial, just scribbled on her clipboard. "Violation remains," she said, her voice flat. "You've ignored the notice. Action is required." Michael's gaze didn't waver. "You called the cops? Over this?" Cynthia's eyes flicked up, unyielding. "It's protocol." "Protocol?" he repeated, stepping forward, his voice a low growl. "Let me tell you about protocol. It's standing in a collapsing tower, radio dead, air black with smoke. It's telling your brother you love him, knowing you'll never hear his voice again. That was Tom's protocol." Cynthia's pen froze. The crowd grew, neighbors, passers-by, drawn by the tension. A woman called out, "Let him keep it. This is America." Murmurs rippled, heads nodded. Cynthia handed him a citation, her hand steady. "Do law 500 fine," she said. Michael took it, his voice ice. "Fine me. I'm not taking it down." By Saturday, the memorial had grown. Wreaths of white lilies and blue ribbons appeared, left anonymously in the night. Across the street, Mr. Callahan raised a flag on his porch. By Sunday, flags lined the block on balconies, in windows, even tied to a child's bike. The sidewalk bloomed with chalk messages, "Saw thank you, Captain Tom. Never forget." Saw a velvet box appeared at the cross's base, holding a purple heart, left by a veteran who watched from a distance, his nods saying more than words ever could. Monday brought a news van. A young reporter and cameraman from a local station captured the scene, the flag, the wreaths, the chalk. They approached Michael, asking why he'd defied the fine. "Because if we forget who we lost," he said, his voice unwavering, "we've got nothing left worth levying for." The clip aired that evening, spreading like wildfire online. The HOA's social media page drowned in comments, stories of September 11th's toll, photos of loved ones lost. Cynthia's name became a lightning rod, her VY Soul Harmony mantra mocked and VY lified. A veterans group issued a scathing statement, praising Michael and condemning the HOA's actions. Wednesday night, a letter arrived from the HOA, formal and cautious, inviting Michael to a meeting. Thursday's community hall was packed at 87 residents, standing shoulder to shoulder, flags pinned to their jackets. Michael walked in, a folder in hand, and the room stood, not clapping, but honoring. Cynthia sat at the board's table, her confidence eroded, her clipboard a flimsy shield. She opened with measured words, framing the issue as a charter violation, but Michael cut through. "If the charter can't honor sacrifice, it needs to change," he said, holding up a signed amendment. "Saw memorials for fallen heroes shall be permitted, no approval required." Saw the room stirred, hands rose, and the vote was unanimous. Cynthia gathered her papers and left without a word, her authority undone by a community that refused to bend. A week later, a plain envelope arrived, handwritten, no HOA seal. Inside, a letter revoked the fine and recognized the memorial, signed by an interim chair. Michael laminated it, taping it beside Tom's photo, a grinning firefighter, helmet under arm, forever on the edge of laughter. On September 11th, the lawn became hallowed ground. Over 200 gathered, bringing flags, candles, signs from children. Michael spoke, his voice steady. Stand for those who can't. This isn't just a lawn, it's memory made real. The applause rose, soft but fierce, a tide of shared resolve. Michael hadn't just honored his brother. He'd reminded a nation what it means to remember.